CreepyCorner stories.
Hey folks, before we dive into tonight's stories, I want to give a huge thank you to Kieran Tibbetts and Lisa Collin for supporting the channel and being amazing members. If you'd like to help me keep creating these stories, feel free to become a member. It really helps the channel grow. I'm planning to continue exploring more than just the dark web tales, so if you enjoy what you hear tonight, you're in the right place. Now, grab your headphones, turn off the lights, and let's step into another amazing night with you and me together. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. It means the world to me and helps keep the horror alive. And tell me in the comments, what kind of story hits you the hardest? The ones that feel too real, or the ones that could actually happen to someone you know? My brother joined a dark web game to win money. The prize was me. Okay, so I know this sounds absolutely insane, like straight out of a B movie insane, but I swear on everything I hold dear, every single word of this is true. I'm writing this partly because I need to get it all out, and partly because, well, you'll see. Maybe someone out there has seen something similar, or maybe someone can tell me I'm just dreaming. I wish I was. It all started a few months ago. My brother Liam has always been a bit of a thrill seeker, not in a jump out of planes kind of way, more like a let's try to hack into the school's grading system for bragging rights kind of way. Harmless mostly. We're both in our early 20s. I'm 23. He's 21. I work a pretty standard 9 to 5 at a marketing firm, trying to adult, you know. Liam, on the other hand, is a tech wizard, self-taught, coding since he was like 10. He could probably build a fully functional AI out of a toaster and some spare parts. He's always been fascinated by the fringes of the internet, the deep web, dark web, all that stuff. He'd tell me stories, sometimes over late-night McDonald's runs, about forums he'd found, weird communities, encrypted chats. I always just shrugged it off, like, yeah, Liam, don't get yourself into trouble. I figured it was mostly urban legends, creepypastas, people trying to spook each other. Boy, was I wrong. One Tuesday night, I remember it vividly. I was scrolling through TikTok, probably watching some ridiculous cat videos, when Liam burst into my room. He looked different. His usual casual slouch was gone, replaced by this wired, almost manic energy. His eyes were wide, a little bloodshot, like he hadn't slept in days. He was clutching his phone, and his hand was trembling slightly. "Dude, you will not believe this," he practically shouted, his voice hoarse. "I found it. The game." I blinked at him, taking a sip of my lukewarm Starbucks latte I'd forgotten about. "What game, Liam? Are you talking about that new Valorant season pass? Because if you want me to spot you, I'm kinda broke until payday." He just waved his hand dismissively. No, not that kind of game. This is different. It's real. A real-life game. He plopped down on my gaming chair, spinning around to face me, his face illuminated by the glow of my monitor. "So, remember how I told you about those dark web forums, the ones where people bet on weird stuff? Well, I stumbled onto this new one. It's super exclusive, super encrypted. Took me like a week just to get past the initial security protocols." He was talking a mile a minute, bouncing his knee. "And they're running this competition. A game. The prize money is unreal. We're talking like $1 million, tax-free, untraceable." My eyes widened a bit at the mention of $1 million. Okay, That got my attention. $1 million? Liam, what kind of game offers $1 million? This sounds like a scam, or worse, like human trafficking or something. Seriously, dude, get out of there. He scoffed, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes, something I couldn't quite place. Excitement mixed with a tiny bit of fear. No, it's not like that, and it's a series of challenges, like an ARG, but with real stakes. And the prize is legitimate. I've seen proof. Other winners, people who cashed out. He pulled up a secure browser on his phone, showing me screenshots. They were blurry, pixelated, but I could make out forum posts, what looked like bank statements with huge sums and cryptic messages congratulating players. It all looked professional in a terrifying underground kind of way. So, what's the game? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. $1 million for a game on the dark web? Nothing good ever came that easy. Liam took a deep breath, and for the first time, his usual cockiness faltered. It's personalized. Each player gets a unique set of tasks. The catch is, you don't know what they are until you're in, and you have to put something up as collateral, something valuable. Collateral? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. Like what? Your car? Your house? He shook his head, looking at the floor. No, something more personal, more binding. They want a stake in your life, so you're fully committed, and they make it clear, if you back out or fail, you lose your collateral. A shiver ran down my spine. This wasn't just a game. This was something sinister. Liam, seriously, walk away from this. It's not worth it. $1 million isn't worth whatever collateral they're asking for. This sounds like a trap, like something out of a horror movie. He finally looked up at me, and his eyes, despite the fatigue, held an almost desperate glint. I already signed up, Sarah. My jaw dropped. You what? I needed a place to live, he mumbled, running a hand through his messy hair. My landlord's kicking me out, rent's insane, and I can't find a decent job in tech without 3 years of professional experience, even though I could run circles around most of these guys. He was clearly stressed about his living situation, which explained some of his desperation. This is my shot, Sarah. Our shot. We could buy a house, get out of debt, travel the world. Imagine, no more 9-to-5s, no more struggling. He was painting a picture, a beautiful, tempting picture. But the canvas it was painted on was stained with something dark and unsettling. Liam, what did you put up as collateral? I asked, my voice barely audible. I had a terrible feeling about this. A truly, deeply terrible feeling. He hesitated, a long, agonizing moment of silence stretching between us. He looked at his phone, then at me, then back at his phone, as if trying to find the words. Finally, he swallowed hard. They asked for a close family member, he whispered, his voice barely audible. Someone I care about deeply. Someone who would make me truly committed to winning. My blood ran cold. The phone clattered from my hand, hitting the carpet with a soft thud. I stared at him, my mind trying to process the words, to make sense of the horror they implied. Who? I asked, the word a strangled gasp. Liam, who did you put down as collateral? He wouldn't meet my gaze. He just looked at his phone screen, which was now displaying a single, chilling message. A message that made my entire world tilt on its axis. Welcome, player 734. Your game begins now. Your collateral. Sarah, your sister. And beneath that, a picture. My picture. A candid shot from my Instagram. Me laughing, holding up a peace sign in front of a giant Starbucks sign in New York City during my last vacation. The exact location, the time, all perfectly captured. It was like they knew everything about me. I felt a scream building in my throat, but it never came out. Only a suffocating, icy dread. My brother had joined a dark web game. The prize was money, and the collateral, the prize if he lost, was me. I looked at Liam, my own brother, sitting there, his face a mixture of fear and a twisted determination. He looked like he was about to throw up. This wasn't a game. This was my worst nightmare coming to life. And I had a feeling, a sickening premonition, that it was only just beginning. The silence after Liam showed me that screen wasn't the good kind of movie silence, the one that builds tension. It was the absolute, crushing kind of silence where your brain just short circuits. I remember this ringing in my ears and my vision going blurry around the edges. I literally couldn't breathe. My first instinct wasn't to scream or cry. It was pure, unfiltered rage. "You absolute selfish idiot!" I finally shrieked, jumping out of my chair. I had a half-full glass of water on my desk, and I just grabbed it and threw the water right in his face. It was pathetic, but it was all I could do. Liam flinched, wiping the water from his eyes. He didn't even get mad. He just looked utterly defeated, like a scared kid who'd just broken something priceless. "Sarah, please, listen to me." I was desperate. I didn't think it would be you. I thought they meant like a valuable possession, maybe a car, or, I don't know, a cryptocurrency wallet. I just put the name of the closest person I cared about because the site kept rejecting everything else. You put my name on a contract on the dark web. I was shaking, pacing a tight circle in my small bedroom. "Liam, they used my Instagram photo. They know who I am. Do you have any idea what this means? This isn't some cheap scam where they steal your credit card. This is real human collateral. This is literally the plot of a terrible horror movie." He stood up, trying to grab my arm, but I yanked it away. I know. I freaked out the second I saw it. But hear me out, please. There's a way out. I just have to win. If I complete the tasks and win the money, we're both safe. They wipe the collateral agreement, and we walk away with $1 million. And if you lose, my voice was cold, sharp, and terrifyingly calm now. He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the floor, muttering, "The rules are vague, but it implies they take the collateral." They said something about a transfer of ownership to a third party. The transfer of ownership. That's when the reality of it all truly hit me. This wasn't just about losing money. This was about being taken, kidnapped, sold. I felt bile rise in my throat. I immediately grabbed my laptop, slamming it open. "Okay, we're calling the police. Right now." Liam lunged forward and slammed the lid back down. "No, you can't. They specifically warned against it. They have an AI that monitors player activity, and if I try to contact law enforcement, or even a lawyer, they consider it a breach of contract. They said they'll expedite the collateral acquisition. Expedite the... Are you hearing yourself?" I yelled. "You think they care about contracts, Liam? These are criminals, probably murderers." "I know," he pleaded, holding his hands up in a gesture of surrender. "But they are structured criminals. They operate on rules. If I play by their rules, I have a chance. If we panic and call the police, they will come for you tonight. The site said they monitor geolocation and all social media activity, linked to the collateral. They know exactly where we are, Sarah. They're watching. That stopped me cold. He was right. That picture of me at the Starbucks in New York City was a casual Instagram story from months ago. They dug that up instantly. They had my full name. They knew where I lived. The following few days were a blur of absolute terror. Liam started the game. He was glued to his computer in his room, the door locked, constantly messaging me updates via encrypted signal chats, even though we were in the same apartment. We were both too paranoid to talk out loud. The first challenge was bizarrely mundane, which somehow made it even scarier. Challenge 1, 24-hour deadline. Acquire a specific antique porcelain doll from a small, unnamed secondhand store in a remote town in rural Ohio. Liam showed me the coordinates. It was a 10-hour drive from our city. "This is crazy," I whispered into the phone, huddled under my covers. "Just a doll." "Why a doll?" "I don't know," Liam typed back, his messages frantic. "But they said if I miss the deadline, the game ends and the collateral is forfeited. I have to go." He left that night, driving my beat-up Honda Civic. He looked like a fugitive. I spent 24 hours alone, staring at the ceiling, jumping at every car that drove past our apartment complex. The second challenge was worse. It wasn't about an object. It was about a person. He got back exhausted, his eyes sunken. He'd completed the doll mission, barely. He didn't tell me exactly how he got it, only that the store was locked and he had to negotiate. The moment he walked in the door, a new encrypted message popped up on his phone. He showed it to me, his hand shaking so violently he almost dropped the device. Challenge 2, 48-hour deadline. Locate and acquire a specific item of clothing from a currently employed security guard at a major corporate building in Frankfurt, Germany. The item must be delivered to a drop-off point in a public park in London, UK, within the time limit. Travel expenses are provided via untraceable crypto transfer. I looked at the message, then at my brother. Frankfurt, London. "Liam, you have to fly across the Atlantic for a security guard's uniform." "How? This isn't an item. This is basically a kidnapping or a major theft. And they want it in 48 hours. That's impossible." He was already pulling up flight schedules on a secure VPN. "I have to try, Sarah. If I fail, you're the one paying the price." He looked at me with an expression of sheer, agonizing guilt. I saw a few more details on the forum. I think I understand what transfer of ownership means now. I saw a couple of posts from users who quit the game early. "What did they say?" I urged, my voice cracking. He looked away, whispering. They were talking about a service, a hidden one, for VIPs, people who pay astronomical amounts of money for unique experiences. One post mentioned a location, a place called the Quiet Room, in an abandoned building in Russia. He turned back, his eyes full of tears. "Sarah, they're not going to kill you if I lose. That's too simple. They're going to sell you. They're going to put you in a cage and let someone buy you." That night, as Liam boarded a flight across the ocean to commit a potential felony to save my life, I logged onto my own laptop, not to call the police, not to call a lawyer, but to search. I knew better than to use Google. I went into the deepest corners of my browser, using every single security protocol Liam had ever taught me. I searched for the term he mentioned. I searched for Quiet Room, Russia, Dark Web, and I found something. A single grainy image on an old, defunct forum. There was a photo of a metallic windowless door, thick as a bank vault. Beside it was a small, crudely written sign. The sign, written in smudged black permanent marker, simply read, "For sale, 734. My blood turned to ice. Player 734. Liam's player number. They weren't just watching us. They were preparing for the sale. And they were already advertising the product. Me. I just sat there, staring at the photo of a metallic door with my lot number on it, knowing that my brother was flying somewhere over the Atlantic, desperately trying to steal a uniform from a security guard to save me from whatever horror lay behind that door. I knew then that I couldn't just sit and wait. I had to join the game, one way or another. The moment I saw that terrifying advertisement, "For sale, 734, I knew this wasn't just Liam's nightmare anymore. It was mine too. I couldn't just sit in my apartment, watching TikToks and waiting for my fate to be sealed by a security guard's misplaced uniform. I had to do something. I spent the next 12 hours straight researching the only lead I had, the quiet room. Liam had mentioned Russia, but the image was so blurry, it could have been anywhere. I went full-on detective mode, using every trick Liam had taught me. Proxies, VPN chains, burner accounts, diving into the deepest, crustiest corners of the dark web. What I found was horrifyingly thin, but consistent. The quiet room wasn't a physical place you could find on Google Maps. It was a brand, a grotesque, high-end, bespoke human trafficking service. The few forum posts I found were ancient, almost mythological, talking about rich elites who craved private, untraceable acquisitions. The terrifying detail that kept popping up was its mobility. The service itself was nomadic, moving its entire operation, including the merchandise, to remote, temporary locations across the globe to avoid detection. They called it the roaming Red Room. But there was a pattern. They seemed to use abandoned, large-scale industrial or government buildings, places that had enough space and soundproofing to keep the operation silent. Think old military bases, derelict factories, or massive empty storage units. While I was doing this deep dive, Liam was MIA. He'd sent me one cryptic message from London saying he had the item but was having trouble with the drop-off. Something about the park being full of police. I sat there, vibrating with panic, knowing that every minute he delayed put a faster clock on my expedited acquisition. Then, 2 days after he left, I got a notification on my regular phone. Not an encrypted chat, a text message from a number I didn't recognize. The message was chillingly casual. Player 734 has completed Challenge 2. Congratulations. You have bought your sister 48 hours. Now for the final round. I nearly threw the phone across the room. They were texting me. They had my personal number, the one I'd use to order late-night Domino's and text my friends about the latest drama on Twitter/X. It was a deliberate, personal intrusion, a way to show me they were everywhere. A minute later, Liam messaged me on Signal. He was safe, back in our city, and completely broken. "Sarah, I did it," he typed. "I had to break into the drop zone late at night, and I almost got caught, but it's done. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I saw the final challenge. It's impossible." I rushed into his room. He was sitting at his desk, staring blankly at his monitor. The final challenge was on the screen. Challenge 3, 48-hour deadline. Obtain the original architectural blueprints for the abandoned Olympic Village Stadium located in Sochi, Russia. You must then travel to the location and plant a specified encrypted USB drive in the central utility mainframe as indicated on the blueprints. Proof of completion must be a live 30-second video stream from the interior of the mainframe room. I read it twice. Sochi, Russia. A secure, abandoned Olympic village. Architectural blueprints. Planting a device. This wasn't a game for $1 million. This was espionage. This was something international, complex, and potentially lethal. Liam, you can't, I whispered. You'll get arrested or killed. This is too much. They're making you do something illegal on an international scale. He looked up at me, and his eyes were hollow. They know I can't do it, Sarah. They're giving me a challenge designed for failure. They want me to lose. They want you. He slumped forward, putting his head in his hands. I'm sorry. I screwed up. We're going to the police. I don't care if they expedite it. At least the police will know what they're looking for. No, I said, putting my hand on his shoulder. My mind was racing, fueled by the image of that metallic door with 734 scrawled on it. If you go to the police now, they'll have to investigate you first. They'll ask about the dark web, the money, the first 2 challenges. They'll delay. And the moment they realize how deep this goes, the organization will snatch me before the police can move a single unit. Then what do we do? He choked out. We play the game, I said, my voice cold and steady. But we change the rules. You said the goal is to win the prize, right? You win the money, I walk free. But what if the collateral wins? I brought up the blueprints part. Architectural blueprints for an abandoned Russian stadium. Where do you get that? Government archives, maybe a private contractor. That's hours of searching, hacking, maybe bribing. Too slow. Then, a sudden horrible realization hit me. A real-life, human detail that only someone involved in the dark web would use. Liam, how did they get the image of my Starbucks photo? The one they used in the contract? He looked confused. They must have grabbed it from your Instagram feed, I guess. No, I said, shaking my head. That photo was a Snapchat story that I cross-posted to my Insta stories. I deleted the story after 24 hours. The only way they got it was if they were watching my social media in real time, or they had access to my archive data. Liam's eyes widened. They have a backdoor connection then. They're not just scraping public data. They're in our network. Exactly, I said, pointing at his screen. And this challenge isn't a random, impossible task. It's personalized to your skill set. They know you're a hacker. They know you're good at finding digital vulnerabilities. So, you think. I think the architectural blueprints aren't meant to be found in a paper archive. They're already on the network. They're making this part a digital scavenger hunt. And you're going to find them. I paused, looking at the travel part. Sochi, Russia. That was my job. You handle the blueprints, I told him, already grabbing my emergency backpack, the one I keep packed for spontaneous weekend trips. I'm going to handle the travel and the drop. Liam bolted upright. Absolutely not, Sarah. You're the collateral. The whole point of me doing this is to keep you safe and out of their hands. And how safe am I right now? I snapped back, throwing a few dark clothes and my international charger into the bag. They know where I live. They have my number, and my name is literally on a for sale sign. If you fail this, I'm gone. If I go, at least I'm in motion, and I can look for a way out from the inside. I looked at him, my voice softening just a bit. Liam, you're good with code. I'm good at blending in. We're a team, even if you're a selfish idiot. They want the USB drive planted in the mainframe room. They want the live video proof. That's my specialty. Getting into places I'm not supposed to be, without drawing attention. Think of all those stupid, abandoned building urban exploration videos we used to watch on YouTube. I'm basically a professional now. I zip the bag shut. You find the blueprints and figure out how to bypass the security on that USB drive. Text me the location of the mainframe room. I'm booking the first flight to Russia. If they're going to sell me, I'm going to make sure they earn every penny of it. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat, but I felt a horrifying sense of clarity. The clock was ticking. I was going to Sochi, Russia, to break into an abandoned Olympic stadium, to save myself from my own brother's terrible mistake. The game was no longer his. It was mine. The 48-hour deadline felt less like a ticking clock and more like a wrecking ball heading straight for my face. I booked the flight to Sochi. It wasn't direct, of course. I had to go through Istanbul, adding another layer of anxiety to the whole trip. Every single airport security checkpoint felt like a spotlight was shining directly on me. I kept imagining a team of dark web goons with earpieces waiting to snatch me while I waited for my overpriced Starbucks coffee. Liam, bless his terrified genius heart, was already deep in the trenches. He hadn't slept. He was high on adrenaline, caffeine, and pure existential dread. He was working his way through the digital defenses, trying to find those Russian blueprints. While I was on the first leg of my flight, crossing over the Atlantic, he sent me a frantic signal message. I found it, Sarah. It was buried in an old decommissioned server cluster they probably owned. It's a miracle. The blueprints are legit. Full schematics for the Fish Tea Olympic Stadium. He sent the files. They were enormous, complex PDFs, all in Cyrillic, showing every duct, every power line, every maintenance tunnel. I spent the next 8 hours of the flight translating and memorizing the path to the central utility mainframe, the engine room, as the plans labeled it. It was deep underground, accessible only through a seldom used service entrance near the long abandoned media center. But the good news was immediately followed by the bad, soul-crushing kind of news. I can't decrypt the USB drive they sent me, Liam typed. It's not a standard encryption. It's something bespoke, almost certainly custom-made by them. I can load the files on it, but I can't guarantee the AI will verify the proof of completion video unless it's uploaded through their proprietary software on the drive. It's a fail-safe. Sarah, they designed this to be impossible. This was it, the final, insurmountable hurdle. Even if I risked my life, successfully infiltrated the stadium, and reached the mainframe, if the video proof didn't upload correctly, I'd fail. And failing meant transfer of ownership. I landed in Sochi early the next morning. It was cold, grim, and eerily quiet, especially around the massive, concrete shell of the abandoned Olympic Park. It was beautiful in a massive, desolate kind of way, a monument to a temporary spectacle. I took a cab as close as I dared, then walked the rest of the way, trying to look like a clueless tourist, taking pictures with my phone, probably for some forgotten Instagram post. But the closer I got, the more the tourist act fell apart. The area wasn't just abandoned. It felt guarded, or at least monitored. There were motion-activated floodlights, rusted but intact, and strange, high-pitched static I could hear occasionally, which Liam later theorized was low-level signal jamming. I found the media center service entrance based on the blueprints. It was exactly as described, a thick, unmarked metal door hidden behind some overgrown bushes and a broken-down catering truck. I messaged Liam one final time before I powered down my non-essential tech. I'm in position, sending you my live location on Signal. Don't stop trying to crack that drive, Liam. I'm counting on you. His response came immediately. I won't. I love you, Sarah. Don't get caught. I took a deep breath, slipped on the pair of cheap work gloves I'd bought at a gas station, and went to work. The lock on the service door was old, but heavy duty. Thankfully, Liam had taught me enough about basic security systems, and I'd watched enough true crime YouTube videos to know how to bypass an older magnetic lock with a simple magnet and a little patience. I slipped inside. The air was thick and heavy, smelling of dust, mildew, and something metallic. The smell of a massive, cold machine slowly rotting. I used my phone's flashlight, following the internal corridors and maintenance tunnels exactly as the blueprints showed. The eerie atmosphere was the worst part. Every shadow stretched and danced. The silence was overwhelming, broken only by the echo of my own frantic breathing and footsteps. It genuinely felt like I was walking through the set of a survival horror game, only the stakes were horrifyingly real. Finally, I reached the engine room. It was a cavernous space, filled with huge, dormant server racks and humming power units. In the center, exactly where the blueprint indicated, was the main utility mainframe, a steel cabinet humming with residual power. I had about 10 minutes of travel time left on the clock. My hands were shaking, but I forced them to be steady. I knelt down, found the access panel, and used a small screwdriver from my multi-tool to pop the screws. I opened the panel. Wires, cables, blinking lights. Pure, overwhelming chaos. But I saw the single, dedicated input slot for emergency system updates, clearly labeled on the blueprint. I took the customized USB drive from my pocket. It felt heavy, like a small bomb. As I prepared to insert it, my phone buzzed with an incoming signal message. Liam, stop! Don't plug it in yet. My heart hammered against my ribs. I froze, the drive inches from the port. What is it, Liam? I typed back frantically. I found the loophole. The USB drive is a trap. If you plug it in, it doesn't just upload the video. It sends a burst transmission of your current geolocation and ID immediately to the organization. It's not a verification tool. It's a beacon. They want you to succeed just enough so they can capture you at the completion point. They're waiting near that location. My blood ran cold. I almost walked right into their trap. They didn't just want me to fail and forfeit. They wanted me to succeed and then be captured to make a statement. So, what now? I messaged, my fingers flying over the keys. I can't crack the full encryption in time, but I found a side door, a remote access port. I can hack into the stadium's local network, but I need you to create a diversion, a massive, verifiable systems failure, something they can't ignore. I looked around the room, full of power and life support systems, a diversion, a massive failure. I looked at a large, exposed water cooling pipe leading to the main server cluster. Diversion ready, I typed. Good. Now, you need to plug the USB into a completely random, non-networked port, like a defunct security camera hub outside the main room. will send the beacon, but it will be delayed and confusing. While they're rushing to the wrong location, I'll hit the network. Give me 5 minutes after the diversion. Get out fast. Get safe. I'll message you when the mission is verified. I read his instructions. It was risky, insane, and our only shot. I looked at the cooling pipe, then at my multi-tool. Time to make a very loud, very wet exit. The whole stadium was about to go dark. I had one shot to win this thing. I didn't hesitate. If that USB drive was a beacon, I was going to throw their flare into the wrong ocean. I took one last look at the mainframe cabinet, then at the massive water cooling pipe right next to it. I didn't have time for finesse. I took the screwdriver end of my multi-tool, placed it against a weak spot in the rusting pipe joint, and leveraged all my weight. It was loud, grating, and terrifying. With a final sickening snap, the seal broke, and water erupted with the force of a fire hose, instantly flooding the area and soaking the dormant electronics. Screeching alarms immediately lit up the cavernous engine room. Not the loud, blaring kind, but a chilling, high-pitched electronic wail. The sound of a multi-million-dollar system collapsing. Sparks flew from a nearby junction box. My diversion was a success. I bolted out of the engine room and back through the maze of tunnels, soaking wet and terrified, the alarms echoing behind me. I had to find a non-networked port, fast. I remembered seeing a defunct security camera station near the main concourse access. I sprinted, my mind completely blank, except for the layout of the blueprints Liam had memorized, into my brain. I reached the defunct camera station, a sad, dusty relic of the Olympic media frenzy. I quickly jammed the lethal USB drive into an old, exposed port on the back of the broken monitor unit. It was the digital equivalent of mailing a bomb with the wrong address. I didn't wait. I heard heavy doors slamming shut somewhere above me. The organization was reacting. They were moving. I scrambled back toward the service entrance, crawling under rusted scaffolding and old top piles. Just as I reached the door, my phone buzzed. It was Liam. "I got in! Your diversion gave me the window. I planted a counterworm. It's looping the verification signal. They're getting a continuous verified feed from the mainframe room. They think the mission is a success." "Did you disable the beacon?" I messaged back, fighting to keep my breathing even. "I masked it, but I can't guarantee it's off." "Get out now, Sarah. They're sending a team to the stadium." I opened the service door, scrambled out, and pushed the rusted catering truck back in place to hide the entrance. I didn't stop running until I reached the main road. I found a dimly lit McDonald's a kilometer away, a small, comforting beacon of corporate normalcy in a world gone mad. I staggered inside, soaked and shivering, and huddled in a booth, trying to look like a backpacker who just survived a storm. 5 agonizing minutes later, Liam sent the message I'd been waiting for. Verified. Challenge 3. Complete. The prize money has been deposited into the secure wallet. Game over. You're safe. They can't touch you now. My head fell onto the sticky table of the McDonald's booth, and I let out a shaking, silent sob. We had done it. Liam had won. I was free. I was safe. I was $500,000 richer, half of the million, as Liam insisted. I flew home the next day. Liam met me at the airport. He looked like a refugee, but he was alive. We hugged, a messy, tearful, shaky hug of 2 people who had just stared into a deep, dark abyss. and somehow managed to climb out. The aftermath and the lingering fear. We are safe now. Liam transferred the money into untraceable offshore accounts, then slowly moved a small portion back to start rebuilding our lives. He shut down all his deep web activity, reformatted every drive, and changed all his physical security. We moved out of our old apartment and bought a small anonymous house 2 states away. We even started using cash mostly, but the fear never left. It's a bone-deep, constant presence. A few weeks ago, Liam was checking the old secure forum one last time, just to ensure his player 734 profile was officially purged. It was gone, but before he logged off, he saw a single new post near the top of the board. It was labeled Completed Sale. He clicked it hesitantly. It was a single image, similar to the one I'd found, a picture of a metallic door. But this time, it was slightly different. It had fresh scratch marks on the bottom corner, as if someone had clawed at it. And the sign written in smudged black marker didn't say, "For sale, 734. It said, "Collateral acquired. Thank you, Player 7, 134. Enjoy the prize." We stared at the screen, our hearts sinking into our stomachs. Acquired? The mission was complete. The prize was paid. I was safe. We thought it was a sick joke, just them trying to mess with us. But then Liam saw the date of the post. It was dated 4 hours after I completed Challenge 3. They couldn't have, I whispered, the blood draining from my face. I was on a plane. Liam zoomed in on the scratch marks on the door. Then he zoomed out on the metadata of the image. "They didn't sell you, Sarah," he said, his voice a terrified whisper. "They sold the idea of you." The contract was about possession, not physical being. They sold the risk that you represented. Then he found the details of the sale. The purchase price was huge, and the name of the buyer was terrifyingly familiar. It wasn't a person. It was the name of a shell company. A shell company that, through several untraceable layers, was owned by the same corporate structure that operated the dark web forum. They sold it to themselves, Liam realized, his eyes wide with horror. The sale wasn't the prize money. The sale was the final, twisted fee. They kept the collateral rights in-house. They still own the contract. I looked down at the mug of coffee I was holding, which I'd bought at the local Starbucks on our street corner. I'd posted a quick, casual photo of it on my new locked Instagram. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number, just like before. "We told you to enjoy the prize. The game may be over, player 734, but the contract is forever. You are watched. The prize is yours to enjoy, but the collateral is still ours to collect." I looked at Liam. We won the money. We survived the game, but we didn't escape the contract. I'm writing this now because I need someone to know. We are rich, but we are hunted. Every time I hear a car slow down outside, every time I see a light flicker in the alley, I know they're still out there. They're waiting for us to mess up. They're waiting for the day they decide the collateral is worth more than the money they let us win. We won the game, but the dark web now owns a piece of my life, and I have a horrible feeling that the collection process has already started. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you put up as collateral. A dark web group told me to look at the moon at 3:33 a.m. I wish I hadn't. Okay, so I know this sounds totally cliche, like something straight out of a cheap horror movie. But I swear on everything I hold dear, every single word of this is true. And honestly, even now, months later, my hands are still shaking as I type this out. I've been debating sharing this for ages, partly because I'm terrified, and partly because, well, you'll see. I just need to get this off my chest, even if it sounds insane. Maybe someone out there has had a similar experience, or maybe someone can tell me I'm just losing my mind. It all started, as most bad decisions do these days, with boredom and a late-night YouTube binge. You know how it is. 1 minute you're watching a dude build a tiny house, and the next you're deep into unexplained mysteries or top 10 creepiest urban legends. I stumbled onto one of those videos about the deep web. You know, the usual hidden internet stuff, dark forums, weird rituals, all that jazz. I'd always been curious, but never curious enough to actually do anything about it. I mean, who wants to end up on some Faces of Death compilation, right? But this video, it was different. It wasn't just rehashing old stories. It talked about a specific kind of deep web community, one that was supposedly focused on, well, let's just say, unconventional experiences. They weren't about drugs or gore, not explicitly anyway. It was more about existential dread, pushing boundaries, exploring the fringes of reality. Sounded like total BS, of course, but the comment section was a goldmine of people claiming they'd found these groups, or knew someone who had. And that's where I saw it. A single comment, buried deep, almost hidden, just a string of seemingly random characters, followed by, look for Project Chimera. Project Chimera. The name just stuck with me. It sounded so clandestine, so intriguing. My curiosity, the same damn curiosity that makes me click on every mystery box opening video, got the better of me. I spent the next few days, probably way too many hours, trying to figure out how to even access the deep web safely. I downloaded Tor, set up a VPN, did all the don't get hacked precautions I found online. Honestly, it felt more like setting up a really complicated gaming rig than diving into a supposed den of digital iniquity. When I finally got in, it was underwhelming. Mostly just slow-loading forums, a lot of encrypted gibberish, and what looked like really outdated GeoCities pages. I almost gave up, figured it was all a load of hyped-up nonsense. But then, I remembered Project Chimera. I started searching. It took ages, jumping from one obscure link to another, hitting dead ends that led to more dead ends. I was about to call it a night, grab a McDonald's drive-thru, and forget the whole thing when I found it. A hidden forum, almost invisible, with Chimera subtly embedded in the URL. The forum itself was sparse, almost minimalist. No flashy graphics, no meme spam, just a simple white background with black text. The first post I saw was an introduction, something about seekers of the unknown, explorers of consciousness, and those who dare to gaze into the void. It was pretentious as hell, but it also had this chilling undercurrent, like these people actually believed this stuff. I browsed for a bit, feeling a mix of apprehension and genuine fascination. Most of the threads were cryptic, philosophical discussions about perception, reality, dreams, and what lies beyond. It was like a particularly esoteric philosophy class, but with a constant hum of something darker beneath the surface. People weren't just talking about theories. They were talking about experiences, strange occurrences, vivid nightmares that felt too real, a sense of being watched. Then I found that thread. It was titled, the lunar gaze. And that's where my story truly begins. The original post was just a single paragraph, stark and unsettling. For those who seek the true unveiling, the liminal passage, the connection to the ancient current that flows through the celestial sphere. At the precise moment when the veil is thinnest and the world sleeps in its deepest slumber, gaze upon the silent sentinel. 3:33 a.m. Look at the moon and await the whisper. A whisper. What the hell did that mean? I scrolled through the comments, my heart starting to thump a little faster. Most people were dismissing it as a prank, or another one of the forum's weird challenges. But then there were the others, the ones who said they'd tried it. Their responses were chillingly vague. I felt something shift. The silence was deafening. It's not what you expect. One user simply posted a string of emojis. I'm a skeptic by nature. I really am. I always try to find the logical explanation. But something about this, the precision of the time, the almost ritualistic wording, the unsettling responses from others, it tapped into that primal part of my brain that loves a good ghost story, but also fears it's true. I told myself it was just an experiment, a way to experience the deep web more fully. No harm in looking at the moon, right? I mean, I looked at the moon all the time. That night, I couldn't shake it. I tried to watch Netflix, tried to scroll through Instagram, but my mind kept going back to the lunar gaze and 3:33 a.m. It felt silly, almost childish, with the thought of not doing it, of missing out on whatever weird, unsettling experience these people were talking about was even worse. My alarm was set for 3:30 a.m. I told myself it was just for the story, just for the thrill. I wish I had known then what I know now. I wish I had just stayed in bed. My alarm, a gentle vibration on my phone, set to avoid waking my roommates, who would absolutely roast me for this, went off at 3:30 a.m. For a split second, I almost dismissed it, rolling over to burrow deeper into my blankets. But that nagging curiosity, the same one that had pulled me down the rabbit hole in the first place, jolted me awake. Just look at the moon, I told myself. Nothing's going to happen. It's just a silly internet thing. I grabbed my phone, the screen glowing a harsh blue in the pitch black room, and padded silently to my window. Our apartment faces east, so the moon, a fat, almost full orb, was hanging low and bright over the rooftops of the buildings across the street. It was a really clear night, the kind where you can almost make out the craters with the naked eye. The city was eerily quiet, just the distant hum of traffic that never truly stops, even at this hour, and the faint whisper of wind through the trees outside. My phone screen flickered to 3:33 a.m. I took a deep breath, feeling a ridiculous surge of adrenaline. This was it, the big moment. I felt like a kid on a dare, half expecting nothing, half hoping for, I don't know what. A sudden flash of light, a ghostly apparition, a cosmic download of universal secrets. My mind, fueled by too many horror movies and conspiracy theories, was running wild. I stared at the moon, really stared at it. Not just a casual glance, but an intense, focused gaze, trying to emulate whatever unveiling the deep web forum had hinted at. The moonlight poured into my room, painting everything in shades of silver and deep shadow. It was beautiful, honestly, serene. For a few seconds, I actually felt a pang of disappointment. See? Nothing. Just a moon. Then something shifted. Not physically, not in my vision, but internally. It's hard to explain. It was like the silence deepened, became more profound, more heavy. The distant hum of the city seemed to recede, and all I could hear was the frantic thump-thump of my own heart in my ears. The moon, which had been a familiar, comforting presence just moments before, started to feel different, larger, closer, like it was watching me. And then the whisper. It wasn't an audible sound, not a voice I could pick out with my ears. It was more like an idea, a cold, sharp thought that unfolded directly in my mind. It was a single, chilling concept, utterly alien and yet perfectly clear. You are seen. The words weren't in English or any language I recognized, but the meaning resonated with an unnerving clarity. It was like a direct injection into my consciousness, and with that thought came a wave of pure, unadulterated dread. It wasn't the jump scare kind of fear. It was the slow, insidious, existential dread that crawls into your bones and sets up shop. The kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand on end and your stomach clench into a tight, cold knot. I wanted to rip my gaze away, to close my eyes, to run and hide under my bed like a child. But I couldn't. It was like my eyes were glued open, fixed on that glowing orb. The moonlight, which had felt cool and gentle, now felt invasive, like a physical presence pressing in on me. The shadows in my room seemed to stretch and deepen, taking on impossible shapes. Was that my jacket draped over the chair, or something hunched there, watching from the periphery? My breath caught in my throat. I felt suddenly, profoundly, utterly alone, but also not alone. That "you are seen" reverberated in my head, echoing and expanding. It wasn't a comforting thought. It was a predatory one. I don't know how long I stood there, trapped in that lunar gaze. Minutes? An eternity? Time seemed to warp and stretch. My eyes started to water, blurring the edges of the moon, making it pulsate and swim. My body felt stiff, my muscles locked. I could feel a cold sweat trickling down my back. Finally, with a tremendous effort that felt like breaking free from invisible chains, I tore my eyes away from the window. My chest was heaving, my heart hammering like a trapped bird. I stumbled backwards, bumping into my desk, sending my empty Starbucks cup clattering to the floor. The sound was deafening in the silence, jarring me back to reality, or at least my reality. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers trembling so badly I almost dropped it. The time now read 3:45 a.m. Only 12 minutes had passed, but it felt like hours. My room, which moments before had felt sinister and shadowy, was now just my messy room. The jacket on the chair was just a jacket. The silence was just the normal quiet of the pre-dawn city. It was nothing, I tried to tell myself, forcing the words into my panicking brain. You freaked yourself out. You stared at the moon, expected something, and your mind filled in the blanks. It was just suggestion, an overactive imagination. But the chilling clarity of "you are seen" still echoed in my mind, and a new terrifying thought joined it. By whom? I didn't sleep a wink that night. I sat on my bed, staring at the closed curtains, my mind racing, trying to rationalize, to dismiss. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the moon, impossibly close, and felt that unseen gaze. I spent the rest of the night scrolling through the lunar gaze thread on Project Chimera again, desperate for an explanation, for someone to confirm my experience or debunk it. But the comments were still vague, still unsettling. No one was saying, "Yeah, I got spooked too," but it was just my brain playing tricks. Instead, there were new posts, even more cryptic than before. One simply read, "The connection is made." Another, Welcome to the awareness. I felt a cold dread settle deep in my stomach. What had I done? I'd gone looking for a thrill, for a story, and now I had this unsettling feeling that something had latched onto me. Something unseen, something that had acknowledged my gaze. The next morning, everything felt off. The sunlight seemed too bright, the sounds of my roommates getting ready for work too loud. My regular coffee from the corner, Starbucks tasted bitter, and the cheerful jingle of the McDonald's ad on the radio felt like a mockery. I kept glancing over my shoulder, a prickling sensation on the back of my neck. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like that feeling of being watched hadn't gone away. It was still there, a constant, subtle pressure. And every time I looked at the sky, even in broad daylight, I felt a tremor of fear, because I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that the moon had seen me. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't the only thing. The subtle shifts started getting less subtle, and honestly, terrifyingly specific. It wasn't just the light in my apartment anymore. It was the world outside. I remember driving to the Starbucks on the corner, the one with the perpetually broken drive-through speaker, and seeing it, just for a flash. The girl taking my order, a standard university student with a bright pink beanie, had eyes that were just a little too wide, too black. Not the pupil, but the iris. It looked like the dark, bottomless ink you get when a photo is completely underexposed. Before I could process it, she blinked, and they were normal. Hazel. I even pulled over in the parking lot and took a shaky sip of my latte, trying to convince myself the caffeine jitters were playing tricks. But then it happened on TikTok. I was mindlessly scrolling, trying to detox my brain from the deep web garbage. I followed a bunch of those animated story channels, the ones that make everything look cute, but talk about grim stuff. One of my favorite creators, Whispers in the Dark, posted a new video. The title was something generic, A Date Gone Wrong. I clicked on it, expecting the usual animated couple drama. Instead, the animation was my apartment. Not just a generic apartment, mine. The same messy desk, the stack of uncharted games, the specific ugly stain on the carpet by the window. The animated character, who was supposed to be the creator's avatar, looked exactly like me, down to the same faded band t-shirt I was wearing that day. And the audio, it wasn't the creator's voice, it was the whisper, the same sibilant, dry sound I'd heard that night. The sound had been layered, slowed down, and twisted, but I knew it. It was talking about me, about my eyes, about the 3:33 a.m. ritual. The animated version of me was staring up at the moon, and then a grotesque, shadowed figure, with those same stretched, skeletal fingers I saw in the periphery, was crawling down the side of the building toward the window. I dropped my phone. It clattered on the kitchen floor, and I just stood there, hyperventilating. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't some random person. This was someone, or something, that knew exactly what I had done and was now reaching out through the digital noise. The video was only up for about 5 minutes. When I finally dared to pick up my phone, the channel was gone. Wiped. No search results. No whispers in the dark. Nothing. Just a memory that felt terrifyingly manufactured. The real escalation came the next day. I needed to get out, clear my head. I decided to walk to the local park, the one with the big pond where people feed the ducks. As I was walking past a small group of guys hanging out on a bench, I overheard their conversation. Yeah, man, I checked the forum. They're watching him. The guy who did the lunar gaze. My blood ran cold. My steps faltered. For real? Did they say anything about the time? 3:33? No, just that he's almost ready. He's connected. They're just waiting for the signal. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I just kept walking, my pace increasing from a power walk to a desperate, panicked jog. They were talking about me. People in the real world, here, in my city, in my neighborhood, knew about this cryptic deep web group and what they were doing. It made my stomach clench into a tight, sickening knot. That night, I didn't sleep. I just sat on my couch, the lights on, the TV playing some garbage reality show, just to fill the terrifying silence. I had disabled Tor, formatted my hard drive. I did everything I could think of to cut the digital link, but it didn't matter. The link wasn't digital anymore. It was in my head, and now, apparently, it was in the streets. Around 2 a.m., my phone, which I'd left charging on the kitchen counter, buzzed. It was an incoming call from an unknown number. I normally ignore those, but something compelled me. Maybe it was the deep, unsettling need to know. I answered. There was no dialing noise, no static, just that sound again. The dry, layered, sibilant whisper. It was louder this time, more focused, and through the noise, I could almost pick out a word, repeating over and over again. It sounded like chimera. Then, a sudden, sharp, almost human-sounding noise cut through the whisper. It was a scream, not a movie scream, but a raw, choked, real sound of pure terror. It was cut short by a wet, sickening thud, and then a voice, clear and cold, cut in. It wasn't a whisper. It was a deep, calm male voice, like a voice actor narrating a true crime documentary. You're watching the wrong window. Look out the right one. Your signal is almost ready. The call disconnected. I stood there, frozen, the phone heavy in my hand. I lived on the 3rd floor. I had 2 main windows, the big one in the living room and a smaller one in the bedroom. I slowly, deliberately, walked toward the bedroom window, my blood thrumming with adrenaline and paralyzing fear. I pulled the curtain back. The street was dark, silent, and empty, except for one thing. Down on the sidewalk, right below my window, was a small, dark red stain, and next to it, glinting faintly in the pathetic light of the street lamp, was a familiar object, a pink beanie, the same one the barista was wearing at Starbucks this morning. I clamped my hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. It wasn't a hallucination. It wasn't a dream. They had just shown me a glimpse of the brutal reality they operated in, and they had done it right outside my home. They were playing a game, and I had just realized that the rules of their game included murder, and I was the one who had invited them in by looking at the moon at 3:33 a.m. I needed to know who this voice belonged to. I needed to know what the signal was. But more than anything, I needed to know if I was truly alone, or if someone was already inside my apartment, waiting for the moon to come back around. The sight of that pink beanie and the dark stain on the sidewalk was the ultimate gut punch. It stripped away any lingering shred of rational doubt. This wasn't a prank. It wasn't a weird, deep web role-playing game. This was a horror movie playing out in my actual mundane life, and they were using me as the star. I didn't call the police. That might sound insane, but think about it. Hello? 911? A deep web group told me to stare at the moon at 3:33 a.m., and now I think they murdered a barista and left her hat on my lawn as a warning. I'd be in a straitjacket faster than I could finish the sentence. Besides, the cold, calculating voice on the phone, the one that knew my Reddit username, made it clear they were watching. Any move I made could be the trigger for the signal. I spent the rest of the night barricaded in my apartment, not sleeping, just watching the windows. The sun finally came up, slow and sickly, and I had to check. I crept to the window, peering down at the sidewalk. Gone. The stain, the beanie, all scrubbed clean. It was like it had never happened, except for the icy clenching dread in my chest. I knew I had to get out, but where could I go? They were everywhere. They were in the streets, on the deep web, and somehow they'd managed to hijack a small-time YouTube channel to send me a private, terrifying message. I decided my only chance was to expose them, to turn their own game against them. I drove to the McDonald's across town, the one with the decent Wi-Fi and the awful coffee, and logged into a brand new, completely clean computer at one of the booths, paying with cash. I bypassed Tor. If they were watching me this closely, I figured I might as well make some noise where the public could hear it. I created a burner account on Twitter. My first and only tweet was a single, frantic plea. At Luna Echo 13, if anyone has heard of Project Chimera or the Lunar Gaze, I need help. They know who I am. They are real. They told me to look at the moon at 3:33 a.m., and now people are getting hurt. I need to know what the signal is before it's too late. I also posted a similar, more detailed account on a relatively unknown fringe conspiracy Discord server, a place where people actually discuss deep web stuff without instantly branding you as crazy. I knew it was a long shot, but I was running out of moves. The response was immediate and terrifying. On the Discord server, one user, whose avatar was a silhouette of a person staring at a crescent moon, replied instantly, LMAO. You did it? You actually did the gaze. You shouldn't have posted this. My Reddit username. You just hit the button. Another user responded with just a clock emoji, but the Twitter post was worse. Within an hour, I had 0 likes, 0 retweets, and hundreds of replies. They weren't from random people. They were all coming from new, fresh accounts with random animal names and numbers. At Wolverine 492, at Condor 011, at Jackalope 77, and their replies were coordinated. They weren't angry or threatening. They were patronizing. At Wolverine 492, look at the little butterfly struggling in the net. So cute. At Condor 011, the signal is what you make it, Seeker. Enjoy the final act. At Jackalope 77, we have the perfect view from here. Keep going. You're almost there. The most disturbing reply, though, came from an account named at 333 Observer. It was a thread of 3 tweets, each one time-stamped exactly 3 minutes and 33 seconds apart. At 333, Observer, it's a beautiful night, isn't it? The air is crisp. At 3:33, Observer, the coffee is stale at this McDonald's. You really should try the one closer to the park. At 3:33, Observer, don't bother looking up. I'm right behind you. I froze. My breath hitched. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. I was sitting in a crowded McDonald's, and someone, one of them, was here, watching me, right now. I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see their face, didn't want to confirm the horror. I just snatched my laptop, threw it in the bag, and sprinted out of there, leaving the cold McDonald's coffee untouched. I drove aimlessly, my mind a mess of fear and confusion. The signal. What was the signal? Was it my exposure attempt? Was it another specific time? Was it a physical location? Finally, exhausted and defeated, I pulled into a dimly lit parking garage near the city's old downtown, the kind of place where nobody goes after 7 p.m. I checked my phone. I had a new text message. No number, just a sender ID, Chimera. The text was short, final, and chilling. The gaze connected the current. The exposure activated the net. The signal is the completion. Your time is running out. We'll meet you where the light doesn't reach. The old observatory. Midnight. The old observatory. I knew the place. It was perched on the highest hill overlooking the city, closed for years, derelict, and rumored to be haunted. A perfect, isolated spot for a real-life horror show. It was a clear, direct challenge, a final confrontation, and they knew I would go, because I had to. I needed to know what the signal was, and more importantly, I needed to stop it before someone else ended up like the pink beanie girl. I looked at the time on my dashboard, 11:11 p.m. I had less than an hour to decide if I was walking into a trap or into the terrifying truth of Project Chimera. The moon was already a magnificent, chilling beacon in the night sky, and I knew, with a certainty that settled deep into my bones, that I wouldn't be coming back the same way. The old observatory was everything you'd expect, remote, desolate, and absolutely silent. It sat on top of Mount Cinder, a jagged, forgotten piece of city history. The moon, a cold, indifferent disk, hung high, flooding the landscape with an unnaturally bright, sterile light. I had ditched my car a mile back, approaching the place on foot through a dense patch of scraggly pines, my heart hammering a chaotic rhythm against my ribs. It was 11:58 p.m. The observatory itself was a crumbling brick structure with a giant dome-shaped roof that was half covered in moss. I pushed open the main metal door. It didn't even have a lock, just a squealing hinge, and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and the metallic tang of decay. The main chamber was a huge, empty, circular room. In the center, under the broken dome, was the base of the massive old telescope. I pulled out my phone, the flashlight cutting through the oppressive darkness. I was looking for them, the deep web group, the killers, the chimera, but the room was empty. Suddenly, a voice, smooth and chillingly familiar, cut through the silence. It was the same calm, deep narrator voice from the phone call. "We knew you'd come, Seeker." I spun around. There, standing in the shadows of an archway, were 3 figures. 2 were massive, silhouetted shapes, looking less like people and more like walking columns of darkness. The 3rd figure was smaller, stepping forward into the moonlight that streamed through a gap in the dome. He was impeccably dressed, looking like he'd stepped out of a Universal Studios executive office, not a lair of internet murderers. He had a slight, unsettling smile. "Welcome," he said, gesturing around the dusty chamber. "This is where the light doesn't reach. The signal is ready." "Who are you?" I demanded, my voice shaky. "What do you want? Why the moon? Why 3:33 a.m.? He chuckled, a dry, emotionless sound. "We are the architects of perception. We are Project Chimera. The deep web is merely our billboard. The moon is the anchor, and 3:33 a.m. is the frequency. It's the moment of least human traffic, the weakest point in the global psychic barrier. You didn't just look at the moon, friend. You initiated a data transfer." "A transfer?" "Yes. We need specific minds for the next stage of human experience. highly observant, highly susceptible to existential horror. You fit the profile perfectly. The initial gaze, that's the download. It allowed the whisper to implant the seed of the truth. Every subsequent event, the shifting shadows, the TikTok video, the pink beanie, the McDonald's confrontation, that was the harvest. We needed to push you to the brink, to make your mind a perfectly tuned receiving dish. He paused, tilting his head. The final piece, the key, is the signal. It's not a message from us, Seeker. It's a message from you. The two massive figures behind him moved. They positioned themselves on either side of the old telescope base. Then, I noticed what they were holding. Not guns, but strange metallic devices that looked like a cross between a satellite dish and a high-end gaming headset. They flipped a switch, and the devices began to emit a low electronic hum, a sound that vibrated deep in my chest. The signal is the final, non-rejectable truth, the man explained, his voice losing its pleasant tone, becoming hard and clinical. You went on the deep web. You looked at the moon. You were terrified, exposed, and paranoid. You saw the dark reality of our world. We just needed one final critical piece of data from you to complete the transmission. He walked over to the old telescope base and pointed at a spot directly above it, a circular hole in the dome that perfectly framed the moon. "Tell me," he commanded, his eyes boring into mine. "After everything you've seen, the shadows, the murder, the terror, the deep web, what is the one thing you believe with absolute unshakable certainty?" I didn't have to think. The answer was a raw, primal scream in my head. I looked at the dark figures, the humming devices, the cold moon, and the image of the beanie on the sidewalk flashed in my mind. "I believe," I whispered, the words tasting like ash, "that I am completely and utterly alone." As I spoke the last word, the electronic hum from the two devices became a high-pitched, agonizing screech. It wasn't just loud. It felt like a current running through my skull, pulling my thoughts out like threads of wire. I stumbled back, clutching my head, the sheer force of the sound pinning me to the wall. The man smiled, wide and satisfied. Perfect. The ultimate existential horror. The perfect signal for the new era of reality. The screeching stopped abruptly. The two figures lowered their devices. The room returned to its dusty silence. The man looked at me, his eyes now seeming to reflect the cold light of the moon. "It is done," he said simply. "The signal is broadcast. You have served your purpose." What did you do?" I gasped, still reeling from the sonic assault. He didn't answer. He just nodded to his two companions, and they turned and walked away into the shadows. The man lingered for a moment, looking up at the perfectly framed moon. "Now," he said, adjusting the cuff of his expensive jacket, "you get to live with the consequences of what you've helped create. You were our receiver. Now you are simply the echo." He turned and followed the others, disappearing into the blackness, leaving me alone in the freezing, moonlit chamber. I fled that place, running down the hill until my lungs burned and my legs gave out. I made it back to my car, drove home, and didn't stop until I collapsed into my own bed. That was months ago. I never saw the man again. The forum, Project Chimera, vanished completely. The Twitter account, the Discord server, the animated YouTube channel, it was all scrubbed clean. The world returned to normal. People are drinking their Starbucks lattes, grabbing their McDonald's fries, and scrolling through their feeds. But I know what I did. I know what I saw. The strange thing is, the things I see now aren't really scary in the traditional sense. They're just wrong. Sometimes when I'm talking to a friend, I can see a brief flicker in their eyes, and they aren't looking at me. They're looking slightly past me, as if they're listening to the whisper. Sometimes, late at night, I hear a faint, distorted sound from the sky, and I know it's the signal, my signal, bouncing around the atmosphere, infecting the world. And every single night, I find myself waking up about 5 minutes before the worst hour. I don't look at the clock anymore. I don't have to. I just know that in a few minutes, when the world hits its low point of silence and consciousness, the moon will be there, and it won't be empty. It will be full of my despair. I truly believe I'm completely and utterly alone, and thanks to a stupid, curious click on a dark web link, I've just told the entire sleeping world the exact same thing, and now I think they're all starting to listen. I just wanted a thrill. Instead, I became a conduit for a new kind of horror. So, please, if you're reading this, if you're bored late at night, stay off the deep web, and for the love of everything decent, never ever look at the moon at 3:33 a.m. Okay, just notice something. The reflection of the street lamp in my window. It's not right. It's too large, distorted, and it's winking. I'm going to go check my balcony. I'll update this if I find anything. Wish me luck. I'm scared to death. There's a satellite feed on the dark web showing Earth without humans, but it's live. Yo, I don't even know how to start this. I've literally never posted anything on Reddit before. I'm not a writer, I don't make creepypastas, and I don't even really read r/no sleep. But this thing has been eating away at me for a month now. I haven't slept right. I can't stop watching it. I need to tell someone. I think someone needs to know. So yeah, here goes nothing. I guess I'll just tell it straight. It started with my friend Gabe. He's one of those dudes who knows way too much about computers for no reason. Like, he builds PCs for fun, lives on Reddit and 4chan, and he casually throws out words like packet sniffing or Tor nodes like it's normal. We were just chilling in my room one night, scrolling through TikTok while we waited for some DoorDash. Nothing crazy, just two dudes being broke and lazy. I had just finished a shift at Starbucks, and I was half asleep on the floor. Then Gabe was like, "Yo, you want to see something crazy?" And I knew from that tone it was going to be something sketchy. Now, I'd heard all those stories about the deep web. You know, the hitman markets, red rooms, all that edgy horror story junk. But Gabe always said 90% of it was BS, like just fear bait. But that night, he said he found something real. He said, it's not like gore or anything. It's just wrong. Wrong? I didn't know what he meant until I saw it. So he boots up his laptop, connects through Tor, does some hacker type stuff that I didn't understand. I just sat there eating fries, and then he pulls up this site. It didn't have a name, no logo, just a black screen with white text that said, "You are watching Satellite 6A, Earth as it could be." There was a loading spinner for a few seconds, and then the feed popped up. It looked like Earth, like high up, real high. You could see continents and clouds slowly turning. It honestly looked like NASA live footage, or one of those Earth from space chill streams you can find on YouTube. But something was off. No satellites, no blinking planes, no lights, just emptiness. The thing that really messed with me was how still everything was. No city lights at night, no storms, no movement, just clouds and silence. The weirdest part, it was daytime over North America, where we were, and there were no signs of civilization. No planes, no contrails, no boats in the oceans, just nothing. I asked Gabe if it was a recording. He said no. He even proved it. He pulled up his phone and opened up a Reddit thread from earlier that morning. Someone in Brazil had posted about a crazy lightning storm. And sure enough, when Gabe rewound the feed about 12 hours using the little time bar at the bottom, that exact storm showed up, right over Brazil. But here's the thing, there were no lightning flashes, just the cloud system, like a shell, like it was mimicking the storm, but dead. I felt this cold drop in my stomach, like when you realize your phone's not where you thought it was, that kind of panic. Okay, I said, so maybe it's some weird simulation. Gabe shook his head. Nah, man. Watch this. He types something into a terminal window. A few commands later, he opens up a timestamp tool and syncs it with our own GPS time. Like, exactly synced. And then, while I'm watching, he goes back to the feed and zooms in slowly. And when I say zoom, I don't mean like satellite photos, where it gets all pixelated. This feed had absurd clarity, like 8K drone-style zoom. He zoomed in on New York. Gone. No lights, no cars, no movement, not even roads. Just overgrowth, cracked concrete. Central Park looked like it had spread outward, like it had swallowed Manhattan. I'm serious. Trees and vines covered the city. Skyscrapers were still there, but they were broken, collapsing, like they hadn't been touched in decades. I asked, wait, is this future Earth? Like AI generated or something? Gabe looked pale. I don't think so. I've been watching this thing for 3 days. The sun rises and sets exactly in sync with our time. Cloud movements match real forecasts, but there's no humans, no signs of life at all. Like, someone wiped us out. Clean. Now, here's where it gets really messed up. You can search locations, like, type in places, and the satellite will jump to them. So I typed in my hometown, just to be funny. When the camera zoomed in, I felt my entire body lock up. There was my neighborhood, kinda, but it looked old, like no one had been there for years. The Starbucks I work at, the one I'd just been in a few hours earlier, it was half buried under dust and ivy. The drive-through sign had fallen, and the building was crumbling. Then I saw my street. I swear to God, my house was gone, like it had never been built. There was just an empty lot with grass growing out of the foundation lines. No car, no trash bins, nothing. It looked like the earth had just moved on. I don't even know how to describe the feeling I had. Imagine watching a live stream that shows your entire reality just erased. That's what it felt like. Gabe searched Times Square next. Nothing. Just wreckage. A McDonald's sign half dangling from a metal beam. A cracked billboard that just said, "Welcome back, humanity," in faded paint. But this is what truly messed me up. When he zoomed in further, you could see things moving in the shadows. Not people, not animals, just shapes. Tall, slow, crawling shapes. Like if a centipede stood on 2 legs. And then, the feed glitched. Just a flicker. Like static. For half a second. And in that flicker, I swear to God, I saw a face. It wasn't human. It was staring right at the camera. And then the screen went black. a message popped up. "You've been noticed." Gabe slammed the laptop shut. We both sat there, dead quiet. He said, "That's new. That's never happened before." I asked, "What do you mean, noticed?" He didn't answer. He just started packing his stuff and left. I've been checking the site every day since. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the feed lags or glitches, but it always shows the same thing. Earth, without us. And I'm starting to think it's not a simulation. I think it's a window, a view into something that already happened, or will happen. Last night I checked again. The camera had zoomed in on my street. There was something standing in the empty lot where my house should be, just standing still, watching, waiting. It's been 12 days since I last opened the feed. 12 days since I saw it standing in the lot where my house should be. Tall, still, featureless. Like someone had taken the shape of a man and erased all the detail. Just skin and limbs. Too long. Too deliberate. Like it was posing for me. And I haven't said this part to anyone yet. Not even Gabe. But it tilted its head. Not like a curious dog. Not like, "What's that?" It was slow, mechanical, like it knew I was watching, and it wanted me to see that it knew. I turned off the feed. I unplugged my router. I took the battery out of my phone, and then I sat in the bathtub with the lights off for 6 hours straight, holding a kitchen knife, like that would do anything. But none of that mattered, because when I turned everything back on the next day, my camera light blinked, just once, and that was the first time I realized whatever was in that satellite feed, it wasn't just on the screen. The day after that, Gabe went missing. He didn't answer texts. Phone went straight to voicemail. I thought maybe he just ghosted. He'd done that before. Disappeared for a few days after going down some coding rabbit hole. But then I went to his apartment. The door was unlocked. Everything inside was wrong. I don't even mean messy. I mean wrong. The lights were on, but flickering, not like a power surge, more like they were breathing, inhaling, exhaling, faint hums, like something was whispering inside the drywall. And the smell, burnt metal and rotting meat, like a slaughterhouse had been struck by lightning. I found his laptop open on the kitchen counter. The satellite feed was up, but the interface was different now. There was no time bar, no location search, just one word in red at the top of the screen: replacement. The feed showed Gabe's apartment, but it wasn't live. There were no lights, no furniture, no windows, no walls. It was just the outline, the blueprint, like someone had peeled away the entire building and left a concrete box in the middle of a void. And inside that box, there was a shape. Not Gabe, not anything human. It moved like it was remembering how to move, like it had watched humans walk and was trying to perform the same motion from memory. But it didn't understand weight. Its legs bent the wrong way. Its feet didn't touch the floor. And then it looked up, and the feed froze. I ran, not even gonna pretend I was brave. I sprinted out of there and left the door wide open. I didn't even get in my car. I ran 6 blocks to a crowded gas station just to hear other people talking. When I finally caught my breath and looked at my phone, I had a text. It wasn't from Gabe. It was a number I didn't recognize. No name, no profile pic, just coordinates. I wasn't gonna go. Obviously, I'm not that dumb. But something started happening that made me reconsider. Over the next 3 days, the people around me started glitching. I don't know how else to say it. At work, I was talking to a regular, this guy named Mark, who comes in every morning for a caramel macchiato. Normal dude. Talks about his kids. Wears a Cubs cap. He was mid-sentence when he just froze. Like mid-word. His lips stopped. Eyes wide open. No blinking. And then, this part makes my skin crawl. He smiled. Not like a happy smile. A widening one. Too wide. His cheeks cracked at the corners like his face hadn't done that in a while. And then he said, in the exact same voice as Gabe, "You should check the coordinates." I dropped the drink and walked out. That night, my upstairs neighbors started dragging something heavy across the floor for 5 straight hours. It never stopped. I recorded it. I'll post the audio if I can. The worst part wasn't the noise. It was that it didn't loop. It was irregular. Sometimes it was fast, sometimes slow. At one point, it stopped altogether for 20 minutes, and then slammed against the ceiling right above my bed like it was warning me. "I know where you sleep." I cracked. I couldn't take it anymore. So I checked the coordinates. It led to an abandoned industrial park about 45 minutes outside the city. The kind of place that used to be a warehouse district back in the early 2000s, but now it's just gutted buildings and forgotten parking lots. I drove there at 2:34 a.m. I don't know why I remember the time exactly, but it matters, because when I got there, the air felt wrong. The wind wasn't moving, not the trees, not the trash on the ground, nothing. It was like the entire atmosphere had paused. I walked toward the building that matched the GPS marker. It was a 3-story shell. Windows shattered, roof caved in, but the door was untouched, like something had been coming and going. Inside, it was cold, colder than outside, and the first thing I noticed, every surface, the walls, the floor, even the ceiling, was covered in handprints, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all different sizes, all blackened, like they'd been burned into the structure. And they weren't just slapped around randomly. They were in patterns, circles, spirals, a staircase of palms running up the sides like a language written in pain. I couldn't stop staring until I heard footsteps, not behind me, not above me, below me. I turned on my flashlight and saw it, a trapdoor near the back wall, slightly open, just enough for a breeze to be breathing out of it. And that breeze, it reeked. Mold, iron, something ancient, something that forgot what clean air was. I opened it. There was a metal staircase descending into pitch black, and I followed it. I was down there for maybe 10 minutes before I saw the light. A screen, a monitor, glowing in the middle of the basement. And when I got close, it was the satellite feed again. But this time, the feed was zoomed in. Not on a city, not on Earth, on me. It was a perfect overhead view of where I stood, my own body, right there, standing in front of the monitor. I waved my hand, and my hand waved on the screen, half a second behind. Love. I looked up. There was no camera, nothing above me but stone and metal. And then the camera on the feed began to lower, slowly, down toward me, as if whatever was controlling it was descending toward where I stood. I backed up. The screen followed. Then, a new window popped open beside the feed. It was a chat box. No typing. Just one message. "You are still here." I didn't respond. I just ran. But as I turned to go, I saw them. The bodies. They were propped up in chairs against the back wall. 6 of them. All in different states of decay. All facing screens. All watching different feeds of Earth. Just like the one I had been watching. Except, they weren't dead. Their chests moved. Barely. Their eyes twitched. One of them even turned slightly toward me and grinned. Its mouth was sewn shut, and I swear I heard something behind its teeth buzzing. I drove home that night with my headlights off. I don't even remember the drive. I was just trying to disappear, but it doesn't matter, because they're in my feed now. Every night, I open my laptop just to see if it's back to normal, and every night, I see the same thing. Me, sitting at my desk. Behind me, something moves. A shadow that shifts too fast to be real. A second face in the reflection. Sometimes it reaches for me, and the moment it touches my shoulder in the feed, I feel cold fingers on my real skin. Last night, I didn't open the feed, but it opened itself. Just popped up. The message this time said, "Replacement in progress." And behind me, in the dark corner of my room, I heard breathing. There's this thing no one ever tells you about losing your mind. It's quiet. Not like movie quiet. Not like dramatic crying in the corner with violins. Playing kind of quiet. I mean dead quiet, where your own breathing feels like it's not yours anymore. Your heartbeat becomes the ticking of a countdown you don't understand. Every blink feels too slow, like you're lagging behind reality. That's where I live now. I don't go to work anymore. I don't sleep. I haven't spoken to another human in 5 days. My door is locked, barricaded, and duct taped. My mirrors are covered in black trash bags. Every single electronic device in this room has its webcam smashed with a hammer, except my laptop, the one they left open. I didn't open the feed again after that night in the basement. I tried. I swear to God, I tried. But it kept launching itself. Even after I uninstalled the browser, deleted Tor, wiped the drive. The feed was just there, as if it wasn't a site anymore, as if it had installed itself into reality. The day after I saw the replacement in progress message, things started breaking, not in the way you'd think, like glass shattering or stuff falling off shelves. I mean breaking in logic, in the rules. I'll watch my ceiling fan spin clockwise for 3 hours, and then, when I blinked, it was spinning counterclockwise, with no transition. My phone rang with no number. When I answered it, I heard my own voice on the line, not repeating what I said, but speaking ahead of me, describing what I was about to say. And then came the face. It showed up in the feed on the 3rd night. Just a shape at first, standing near the corner of my room in the satellite image, right behind me, as always. But then it started changing, shifting, becoming familiar. It started to look like me. Same posture, same hoodie, same scar on my eyebrow from when I wiped out skateboarding last year. But the face wasn't right. It was mine, but smiling. That same too wide grin Gabe had. The corners of its mouth were raw and stretched like leather pulled too tight, cracking in the creases. Its eyes never blinked. They just stayed open and wet, reflecting light that wasn't in the room. And then it moved. Not on the screen. In real life. I heard the floorboards groan behind me, even though I was alone. I turned around. Nothing. But the smell. That metallic rot, like 1,000 rusted knives soaked in sour milk. It poured into the room like someone had opened a corpse oven. I opened the laptop again. The feed was zoomed inside the house now. My hallway. It was walking down it. Every step, the walls twitched. Paint peeled in reverse. The floor absorbed its footsteps, like it was walking on flesh, not wood. And when it reached my door, the screen glitched, just for a second. And then, it was inside the room. I don't remember what happened after that. just flashes. The ceiling above me rippled, like something massive had brushed against it from the other side. My chest felt like it had collapsed inward, and for a few minutes, I was pretty sure I had stopped existing altogether. I woke up on the floor with my shirt soaked in something thick. It wasn't blood. It was darker, like ink. I touched it. My fingers went numb. There were footprints leading out of the room, human size, but reversed. The toes were in the back, the heel in front. I wasn't alone anymore. The replacement didn't just start, it spread. I began noticing it outside the feed. Little cracks in the world that only I seemed to see. Like the Starbucks across the street. One morning, I watched the barista pour coffee into a cup, but the liquid rose upward into the pot instead. She didn't notice. No one did. On the bus, a kid was watching something on a tablet, some cartoon. But when I glanced at the screen, it was me, in real time, sitting across from him. Only my face on the screen wasn't moving with me. It was smiling. Again. Just smiling. And then I saw the timestamp in the corner of his video. Plus 00:16:48, 16 minutes ahead. I got off at the next stop and walked home. And when I passed by a storefront window and saw my reflection, it was still on the bus. I didn't sleep for 3 days after that. I stayed curled on the floor, eating dry ramen and staring at the feed. And that's when I saw the others. See, for the longest time, I thought I was the only one being watched, being copied. But the feed has tabs, hidden ones. When you click the corner in a certain way, it splits into hundreds of other live feeds. Different people, different rooms, same story. I saw a girl in Korea standing in her kitchen while a copy of her stared at her through the window, unmoving. A guy in Germany smashing mirrors with his fists while his reflection smiled wider and wider until it split open, revealing teeth underneath the skin. One feed showed a little boy sitting in a classroom. Behind him, the teacher was slowly levitating off the ground, bones creaking like branches breaking underwater. No one reacted. Another feed showed a man sleeping, and something watching from under his bed. Not just eyes, but a whole face pressed against the mattress from underneath, pushing up the fabric as it smiled with teeth that didn't fit its mouth. And the worst part, all the feeds were time-stamped. Each one was labeled replacement in progress, replacement complete, replacement unstable, reattempting. Some even said replacement rejected, corpse compromised. I watched one where a woman was trying to claw her own skin off in front of the camera, screaming, "I'm still in here." And then the feed cut out. Just black screen. Then text. Satellite reassigned. I don't think they're satellites anymore. I think that was just the start. They're not watching from space. They're watching from somewhere else. Somewhere behind the reality we know. A fold in the page. And they've memorized us. Our faces. Our movements. Our habits. And now they're rewriting us. You know that Mandela effect thing? Where people remember stuff differently. Like the Berenstain Bears. That's not bad memory. That's early stage overwrite. It's them testing. Last night I blacked out. When I woke up, there were photos on my phone I didn't take. Me sleeping. Me eating. Me in the shower. All from outside the window. And worse. One photo showed me sitting on my bed, typing this exact story. But I wasn't taking the photo. I was looking at the camera, smiling. There is no escape. Not anymore. The feed isn't just on the screen. It's in us. In our routines. Our reflections. our expectations. You're being watched right now. You're probably thinking, no way, this is fake. But check your camera roll, your browser history, that app you don't remember downloading, that folder with a weird name like sys32clone or earthmirror.img. Try deleting it. It won't work. You're already being cataloged. And when your feed is ready, you'll see the message, just like I did. Where the feed ends, it begins. The smell hit me first. Not rot, not blood, not even that metallic taste you feel in your mouth when adrenaline spikes and your body starts preparing for things your brain doesn't want to name. It was old in a way that didn't make sense, like dust from a world no one remembers, a scent that didn't belong in this timeline. It curled under the door like steam and breathed, hot and slow, as if something on the other side of the wood had lungs and memory. I hadn't moved in 12 hours. I hadn't eaten in 2 days. The last thing I consumed was tap water, and I swear to God it tasted like skin, like whatever I swallowed had pores. It left a film in my mouth I still can't scrape off. The satellite feed was still open, but now it was in split view. One side was my room, as usual. The other, a morgue. Not a hospital morgue. Not chrome and clean. No bright lights. It was deep underground. The walls were cracked and damp, like the inside of a buried cathedral. Stone table. Flickering yellow bulbs swinging from frayed cables. And in the middle of the table lay a body. My body. Except, it wasn't me yet. The version of me lying there was too fresh, as if they'd just finished printing me. Skin slightly wrong, like it had been scanned from a photo, and every detail was almost there, but not quite. Hairline slightly off, fingernails mismatched, one eye too far from the nose. The camera zoomed in on my chest. There were cuts, measured, deliberate, not surgical, ritualistic, patterns carved into the skin like coordinates. One line ran from collarbone to navel, and smaller intersecting slices made a shape I've since drawn 100 times without realizing, a kind of looping hourglass with too many lines crossing in the center. Below the image, red text pulsed, remembering pain precisely. That night I started hearing it again, the scraping inside the walls, not like rats, slower, like something was carving tunnels with teeth. And every few minutes a knock, always 3, tap, 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 always behind me, never from the same wall. I screamed once, just to see what would happen, and when I did, the knock came from inside my closet, but not from the door, from the ceiling, as if something had crawled up there and was waiting, face pressed against the thin plaster, smiling through it. I didn't open it. I didn't move. Instead, I watched the feed. It wasn't just my feed anymore. New names had been added to the list. Some I recognized. My boss at Starbucks. A guy I went to school with, but hadn't seen in years. Even the name of a girl I matched with on Tinder, but never messaged. Their feeds looked like mine. Rooms, homes, familiar spaces, with subtle wrongness. One guy's room was tilting sideways, like the floor had grown tired of holding a reality up. A woman's kitchen had cabinets that inhaled, like lungs, opening and closing slowly, with no hinges or sound, just movement. But the worst one? The feed labeled, unstable host, corrupted copy, observe only. It showed a man sitting in a completely white room, no furniture, no windows, just him. Naked, skin pale, and stretched thin. His limbs were tied down, but not by rope or chains. They were pinned by arms, dozens of arms that grew from the walls like roots, each one touching him with unnatural gentleness. He was laughing, constantly, but his face didn't match the laugh. His mouth trembled in horror, but the sound that came out was pure joy, unstoppable, looping childlike glee. His eyes were sewn open with black wire. His chest was carved with the same symbols I saw on my double. And above him, something hung from the ceiling, a shape. It was wearing his face like a veil, draped over it, loosely, as if studying how it fit. Every now and then, it would pull it tighter, adjusting, learning, mimicking. I closed the feed. For the first time, I smashed the laptop. I thought that would be the end of it. I thought that if I broke the screen, cut off the connection, they'd forget me. But that's not how memory works. They don't forget. Not once they've seen you. 2 nights later, I went outside. Just to breathe. Just to see if the world still existed. I hadn't left the house in a week. My skin felt like it didn't belong to me anymore. Every step felt like I was walking in someone else's footprint. At the corner of my street, I saw a man. From the back, he looked like a neighbor I knew. Hood up, tall, lean, standing still under a dead street lamp. But then he turned around. It was my face, not the one I see in mirrors. The one from the feed, too pale, too perfect, grinning. I didn't run. I couldn't. He raised one hand, slow and deliberate, and pointed behind me. When I turned, there was another, then a third, one on every block corner, standing, silent, grinning. I blinked. They were closer. I ran. I didn't go home. I ran until I found a 24-hour McDonald's and collapsed inside. Bright lights, people, music, sanity. But then I heard it. Tap, 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 from the inside of the napkin dispenser. I pulled out a handful, panicked. And inside, stuffed deep in the metal slot, a photograph of me, sleeping, tonight. The replacements aren't just coming. They're already here. I've seen too much. And now I realize they don't just want to take over. They want to know how we die. They want to feel it, to mimic it, rehearse it, perfect it. Right now, there are 3 new feeds in my list. None of them have usernames, just IP coordinates. But the locations, your city, your building, your exact latitude and longitude. Check your windows, look into your mirrors, watch the spaces between static when your TV glitches. And when you hear that knock, don't answer, because if you do, they'll remember your death next, and it'll be just real enough to replace you. Sleep if you want. Just know, they're already rehearsing your funeral. It's not a feed anymore. It's not a camera. It's not a stream. It's not a window. It's a door. One I opened. One I can't close. My name isn't mine anymore. They took it. I watched them carve it out of a tooth. They extracted it. Physically extracted my name from a molar. I didn't even know I had a cavity until they pulled it through the nerve. Not with pliers, with tweezers made from fingers that were never alive. They put the name inside a jar, labeled it, dated it, like a sample, like a virus they'd archived for future study. And now, when I try to speak my own name, my mouth opens, but nothing comes out, like the syllables don't belong to my throat anymore. I can hear the name in my mind, feel it under my tongue, but when I try to say it, it's static, actual static. The sound of television snow crackling out of my mouth. They're erasing me in pieces, and you don't even realize it's happening until the mirror refuses to reflect your eyelids. The feed rebooted 4 nights ago. No prompt, no input. It launched itself after midnight and took over every screen in the house. The TV, the microwave panel, the blinking LED on my humidifier. All of them started syncing, pulsing, like a countdown. Every device started whispering in sync, a rhythm, not in words, just mouth shapes, like they were rehearsing human speech, slowly, clumsily, the shape of every syllable off by a second, as if the room itself had forgotten how to pronounce reality. And in the center of the screen, a new interface, not tabs, not locations, blueprints of me. I saw my bones, each one labeled in ancient text I couldn't read, but could somehow feel. The labels had taste. That's the only way I can describe it. I tasted the word written on my spine. I tasted coal and burned teeth. There was a menu. Edit host. Duplicate structure. Test degradation. Commence dissolve. I clicked nothing. I just sat there, frozen, and then it moved on its own. Commence dissolve. The moment it clicked, I felt it, like my muscles were remembering their own death. Every tendon in my leg tensed, then relaxed. My jaw cracked. My teeth shifted in my gums. My left eye blurred for 3.6 seconds and never fully came back into focus. The tip of my pinky finger turned gray like static, then flickered back. I watched myself decay, frame by frame. And then the sound began, the one they were hiding behind all the whispers. I finally heard it. It wasn't white noise. It was breathing. Hundreds of them, stacked, layered, shallow, insect-thin wheezing on top of slow, wet exhales, breathing like they'd never needed lungs before, but decided to try them on. And then, behind that breathing, I heard myself, screaming, not in pain, in recognition, as if another version of me was buried under that sound, repeating my final words before I could say them. A loop, a warning, or a confession. And then I saw the future. I didn't ask to, but the feed showed it anyway. It cut to Times Square. No people, no cars, no screens, just shadows, buildings twitching, asphalt breathing. The McDonald's sign across the street had teeth now, jagged and rotting, and it bit into itself rhythmically like it was chewing memory. The billboards played something on a loop. Footage of humans, but not real footage. Puppet footage. People made of wet paper, controlled by strings that weren't there. Their heads twisted backward, their smiles too wide. Families hugging each other in fast forward while the sky flickered between flesh and fire. And underneath them, us, you, me, everyone we know, stacked in perfect rows, lying still, faces lifted toward the screen, watching, smiling, even the ones with no eyes. I realized then, they're not replacing us. They're rewriting us, memory by memory, reaction by reaction. They're learning how we end. They're practicing our deaths like a performance, not just for themselves, but for whatever watches them. Something bigger, something behind the feed. I saw a glimpse of it once, accidentally, when I paused the video on the wrong frame, just a fraction of a second. But in that frozen moment, I saw something impossible in the static. A giant face pressed against the screen from the other side. Not angry, not happy, just curious, as if it had never seen a human before, and wanted to wear one. My walls have started moving. The corners stretch at night, like they're tired of pretending to be square. The floor has texture now, like skin with goosebumps. I hear names being said under the bed, but they're not mine anymore. They're yours. I don't know how much longer I'll last. I don't know which version of me is writing this. I don't even know if this post is real, or if it's just a memory you'll discover one day when your own feed starts glitching. But when it does, when you hear the knock on the inside of your screen, when you wake up to find photos of yourself sleeping with timestamps from next week, when you catch your reflection smiling before you do, Just remember, you can't wake up because you were never alive.